everyone, Andrew from WiZDOM here with video 9 in the What Should I Do Now series. So what we've been working through, if you've been following along, is we started with all of those considerations that I encouraged everyone to think about before they even started thinking about what their next property deal looked like. And then we've been building through a bunch of different scenarios. And I guess I've been providing my recommendations and the types of deals that a person in that situation could and should be thinking about with regard to what their next deal looks like. And there was one final scenario that I felt was probably important to pull out and have a bit of discussion about. And that is what the high income but low money situation. So what I mean by that, we've all got the friends, we've all got the clients that look like this. We're talking about the FIFOs, often younger people, sometimes they're not so young. They're earning tons and tons of money, but they don't have any money available to them. Well, again, what should they be doing and what should they be thinking about to be able to move forward in their property journey? Well, the first consideration here absolutely is, again, we're going to be talking about manufactured growth strategies. Yeah, maybe they want to do cash flow in the scheme of things to be able to get out of their employment or change their lifestyle or whatever it happens to be. But the truth is we've really got to focus on building up that equity situation. So how would we go about that? Well, the reality is I've covered most of the types of deals that we would be thinking about here. This person absolutely could be a deal finder. They absolutely could be looking at the joint venture approach in the sense of going and buying a deal out of the market and executing on that. Or alternately, they could be looking at vendor joint ventures as well. Probably one focus that I wanted to bring to this particular situation is the sense of who they could team up with. So when we first dealt with that starting out situation, the person that we were working with had not a lot of money and didn't have a lot of income either. And so they didn't have a lot of borrowing capacity. So with a joint venture like that, the reality is their joint venture partner would need to be able to bring both to the table to be able to go and purchase a property. In other words, their potential joint venture partner would need to be able to both borrow the money and have the current available equity to both cover strategy cost and deposit and everything else as well. Now, probably the difference with this particular individual is they have lots and lots of borrowing power. So the potential joint venture partner could look a little bit different to that other circumstance. In this circumstance, if I was in this situation, I would be able to borrow money. But obviously, I don't have the strategy cost, nor do I have the deposit to be able to actually go and buy a property. But what that means is I could be teaming up with that different person. So, for argument's sake, it could just be a person that doesn't necessarily have a lot of borrowing capacity in their own right, but they do have an amount of money available to them that they're looking to invest in a deal. So the structure of that joint venture would look a bit different to the other one in the sense of they would be essentially lending the money to me. And then as a result of that, I would have current available equity and I would be able to go and buy a property and execute on that strategy as well. But in this case, I would have to buy the property because I'm the one on the loan and I'm the one that's borrowing that money as well. So I thought it was a situation where it was really important just to pull that out, because if you are in this kind of circumstance, you might be looking at a different type of joint venture partner. And for me, that type of joint venture partner, essentially someone that has a reasonable amount of current available equity or cash lying around that they could invest, but don't necessarily have the ability to go and traditionally borrow. Honestly, there's actually a lot of those people around. They're probably more available and more numerous than people who have both the money and the borrowing capacity to be able to go and do a property deal in their own right. And it's fair to say that if a person did have that ability, it would only be time, experience, and the ability to find the deal that would probably stop them from doing a deal in their own right as well. Whereas people, potentially retirees or other people who do have a bit of cash lying around but can't necessarily traditionally borrow, they are very numerous. There's lots of them around, and I absolutely know by virtue of the work that we're doing with our clients that a lot of those clients exist and would be looking to do great deals. I think, again, it's a really good outcome from this perspective in being able to achieve a deal that you otherwise couldn't achieve alone. And of course for them as well. Now, theoretically, they could go and borrow private money or try and do the deal in their own right that way. But again, they might not be unwilling to take on that level of risk, skills, experience, time and focus and all of the other things. and would much prefer to just have a deal brought to them, be investors in that, and get a great profitability return for that investment. So the other thing here, which is probably worth talking about, is whenever I have a person that's in this situation, it's really critical. I mean, it's always critical to have a very good understanding of your borrowing position, hence why we talked about it in the very first video. But the other consideration for me here is making sure that you are very aware of all of the different government and state government incentives to be able to help people getting into property. So whether it's a case of you could potentially get access to some support from a deposit perspective or a low deposit. In some cases, this is not a recommendation, but in some cases on really high incomes, you might be able to even leverage things like personal loans to be able to build your current available equity up. Now, that is borrowed money, and it is certainly going to take away from your borrowing capacity, but you might have an income where that doesn't actually matter. So there are a few different really tricky ways, I guess, to potentially get into a deal in your own right. Particularly if we're talking about, I can't imagine this person has a property at this point in time. So particularly where we're talking about them getting into a principal place of residence. So certainly, again, in some unique circumstances historically, I've had FIFO style miners who have really, really great incomes, but haven't necessarily made great decisions with that money in the past. And by virtue of using things like personal loans plus government support around first home buying and other things, we've been able to scrape together a deposit, get them into a great principal place of residence deal that has also got great opportunity attached to it. And then they've used their income and their capacity to be able to renovate and execute on that strategy over a period of time and start to really work on their capital position, their current available equity position by virtue of that as well. So again, hopefully that's helpful for anyone that is in this situation. A few considerations for how you could be going about your property journey and what potential deal your next deal could look like next. Again, really happy to be bringing you all of these videos. The next and final video will just be about what do WiZDOM actually do? How can we help with this? You know, what is the finance strategy review process and what does that look like? So I look forward to talking you through all of that. As always, until next time, happy investing and bye.